Welcome to Be in Tune. Join me, your host Darian, and my producer Joab, as we have conversations that deepen our connection with our higher power, ourselves, and the world around us. So, get ready to tune in, turn up that volume, and welcome to the Be in Tune podcast. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Be in Tune. What? This is so exciting. I always love saying what at the beginning of an episode. So, how are we doing? How are we feeling? What's going on in your lives? I hope all is well. I do have an icebreaker question for you. What is a song that absolutely puts you like in a good headspace, right? A song that you would say, "This is my jam. This is my song. This is the song that comforts me and it makes me want to move a little bit." For me, it is September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yes. Yes. I love Joab's smile. It's like, because he approves. He approves of this song choice. It's a good song. And for those of you who, if you do not know this song, you need to know about it. You need to know about it. It's a classic. It's a classic. But let me explain my personal relationship with this song. This song was my thesis song. So when I was in grad school, I had to write a thesis my final year. Definitely a requirement in order for me to receive my master's. And the class that I was taking to, help us write the thesis, right? Kind of, break down that process for us. My professor encouraged us to have a thesis song. Like, what is the song that's going to, one, calm you down? Because writing a thesis is extremely stressful, right? You have the whole, I have to come up with a hypothesis. I got to do all this research. I have to read all these articles and I have to write the paper. Like, oh, Lord, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And you can get easily overwhelmed and anxious. And a lot of my peers, a lot of us, we had a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, can we write a thesis? Mind you, that we already did like 2 to 3 years of schooling, right? And we wrote all the papers. Um, but it was a bit overwhelming. So she encouraged us to have a song that we could just play whenever we were feeling overwhelmed and motivate us to keep going, to get to that finish line, and that was my song. I always loved that song, and I named my thesis out, after it. So, there is, in an academic paper, a thesis out there that is called Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I named it that, Earth, Wind, and Fire: Music and Spirituality, because I really wanted to talk about, how music and spirituality coexisted, especially amongst young adults. It was a really good paper. I actually still have like a hard copy of my thesis, and I was just reading it a couple of months ago, and I was like, "Wow!" I'm hoping that one day I'll feel inspired to expand on it. So yeah, what's your song? Right? That's my icebreaker question for you. Of course, you guys can't really answer me back right now. Um, but what is your song? And create a playlist off of that song. Just create a music playlist. If music is your thing, then have that playlist. Have your feel good playlist. And this actually helps us transition into today's topic. There was something on my heart that I wanted to talk about. I actually had I have a whole list of ideas of topics that I want to discuss, but something um, I got inspired. Something came about these past few days, and something inspired me to want to talk about this particular topic, and it's loneliness. It is loneliness. Let's talk about it. Okay. I'm sure some of you are like, please don't. Let's not talk about it because that's all we've been talking about. Especially with, again, surviving a global pandemic, right? And um seeing all the research that has come about, hearing all the different podcasts talk about depression and loneliness. Last year there were several articles that talked about how The stats were this. This was for 2023. I really am curious to know if the stats have changed. So just know what I'm referencing. That 60% of Americans are lonely. 60. 60%. I think another article broke down the stats of like 1 in 3. Like, holy cow, right? And it's someone who, is doing the math here on this, and if I'm a little bit off, like I said, I'm just referencing some articles that I came across last year. Um, but yeah, 60% of Americans feel lonely. So, let's explore. What is loneliness, right? It is that feeling of being alone. For some of us, we feel loneliness, we feel unwanted by others. And we feel like no one cares about us, no one wants to spend time with us. So that's how loneliness appears in our lives in that type of setting. For others, it's I'm literally surrounded by people. I'm in a group and I'm not in tune with anyone. I'm not vibing with anyone, or I still feel like the black sheep in the group, right? I feel like I'm alone in the midst of people. Um, and then for some folks, it's just like, listen, I want to connect. I definitely want to connect, and I'm struggling to do so. I am struggling to do so. This is a very important topic to discuss. Loneliness, um, when not treated, right, when not dealt with in a healthy and an effective manner, it can lead to depression. It can lead to severe depression. And I know a lot of us have experienced that. And maybe there's someone who's listening to this and is experiencing that now. And if you are, I just want to say, um, I feel you. I feel you. I empathize with you. Um, Even though I am not depressed now, you could be like, well, then how are you empathizing with me? Because I have felt depression before. I have. I don't hide it. It's unfortunately human nature, right? We've all had depressive feelings. Some of us still struggle with depression, right? Some of us have been given that diagnosis. So let me make something clear here when it comes up to mental health. Mental health, right, is how we think, feel, and behave, right? So I've heard people say this in the past. I don't have mental health issues. Oh, I don't have mental health. They'll say it like that. I don't have mental health. And I'd be like, nah, fam, you do, because you're alive. Because you're thinking, you're feeling, and you're behaving, right? And I'll say it in that sarcastic manner, right? But that's what's popping in my head, and that's what I break down to people. You do, right? Now, in order for you to be categorized as someone who has mental health issues, right, or struggles with mental health, your thinking, your feeling, and your behaving would have to take a turn, right? As I would put it, or it would be, as some therapists like to put in some assessments, poor, or it decreases in action, or it decreases in thoughts and such, or an increase of like irrational thoughts appear, an increase of irrational feelings appear, an increase in irrational behavior occurs or appears. I hope this is making sense to y'all. Right. So, in order for you to be categorized as someone who has mental health issues, your thinking, your feeling, your behaving has to change and has to affect you in a manner where you're presenting in a way that is not effective, healthy, and or inappropriate. Appropriate, I should say. And it's okay. It's okay. Why do I say that's okay? Because a lot of us have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, or we've been diagnosed with depression, or we've been diagnosed with bipolar, or we've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, or we've been diagnosed with PTSD. Okay? And that just means that our thinking, our feeling, and our behaving, it's not at a base that can help us uh to be, thriving in life. And so loneliness, right? Severe loneliness, intense loneliness can lead to depression. And one thing that I have noticed in the field that I'm in is a lot of us are struggling with loneliness because we are not connecting with people, obviously, duh, right? But we're not connecting because it's hard for us to connect. Let me break this down. I heard it best from someone. They said, it is hard to make friends as an adult. It is hard to make friends as a grown adult, right? And some of us categorize ourselves as grown adults, not when we're 18, but when we're like in our 30s, right? That's when we think, wow, we're really in adulthood now. Forget the 20s, right? In the 30s. Uh, Scientifically speaking, you're a well-formed adult by the age of 26, developmentally, right? That is when your brain finishes developing, right? But for some people, they're like, I know I'm an adult in my 30s, and it's hard to make friends. Why? Because life happens, right? What do we got going on? We got our jobs, we got bills, we got student loans that just don't seem to ever want to go away no matter how much money we throw at it. They just keep coming and coming, right? I'm not going to say much on that because I'm not going to get political around it, but I'm just saying, right? And adulting is hard. It's difficult because of the busyness. And depending on which part of the country you live, and I'm just sticking with the US here, right? Depending on which part of the country you live will determine also how busy you're going to be, right? So there's that. And so there's like the culture of like where you live, right? Influences how busy you're going to be and the importance of like self-care or not. And so we're busy. So that could be a reason why we're struggling to connect, right? But when we hit our 30s and we're in adulthood, right? Some of us still have childhood friends that we can that we are still in touch with, and that is amazing. And then some of us, we just lose our childhood friend. Or the friends that you thought you made in college were going to be your friends for life. Turns out that when you hit a certain age, they're just not there. Why? Because you've all gone your separate ways. Or life just be lifing, right? Seasons happen. All right. I know this best as a New Englander. Seasons indeed happen. Although it feels like winter lasts forever here. But that's besides the point. Right. There's that. There's also, certain circumstances or situations that occurs, right? Some of us get sick at a young age, and that causes us to lose certain connections, right? Or what recently happened is that again, a pandemic hit and it caused us to isolate. So when I was throwing out that stat earlier, about 60% of adults in the US feel lonely. This was being researched after the pandemic. Okay. The pandemic did not help anything when it comes to social connection. Didn't, right? Because we had to isolate. And a lot of us are feeling video fatigued. Either it's like through Zoom, through FaceTime, right? Some of us just don't want that. And we don't know how to connect as well. Some of us just don't know how to get back out there, how to connect with people, how to socialize. They also say too that the rise of social media didn't help. And note that these numbers, right, the 60% was also, I'm sure the number was high, maybe not as high as 60, but I'm sure it was high before the pandemic hit because there is research that shows that the rise of technology, as great as it is, right? Because look at this, Joab and I were doing something together, and no, we're not even in the same space, right? So this is beautiful, right? We're connecting here, but it also supported, people isolating, people not connecting in the quote unquote real world, as we want to phrase it that way. And then of course too, there's personalities as well. We have to think about that. We have to remember that. Some of us are little extroverted butterflies, right? We like to fly everywhere. We like to connect. We need social connection. And then some of us are lovely introverts, right? Where we're like, okay, I have connected enough. Thank you. I need my time and my space. Now, that right there, we're gonna get into the difference between loneliness and solitude, right? Because there's the other side to loneliness, and it's called solitude and how important that is. But right now, we're just talking about loneliness. And why we could be lonely. I'm just throwing out various scenarios, different situations, right? I hope you're following along. And what I want to say is now what we're seeing is that people are struggling to connect socially. And an article put it beautifully. Someone and notes researchers have been talking about this. I've heard this in different conversations, different interviews by experts in the field. We don't have some of us don't have a third place to go to. Let me break that down. When we were kids, right? A lot of us kind of grew up having multiple places to go. There was home, there was school, and maybe there was your friend's Timmy's house, right? If you had a friend named Timmy. Or some of us, there was home, school, and church that we go to, or home, school, and the scouts that we would go to, or whatever sports that we were doing over the weekend. Like we had a third place. And that continued even in adulthood for some of us, right? It was home, school, and whatever party was happening over the weekend, right? Or home, school, and whatever event that you have to go to over the weekend, right? We had a third place. And let's just talk about that because I believe that that's also contributing to the loneliness that we're seeing. A lot of us don't have a third place to go to. Because if you survived the pandemic, you didn't have not even a second place to go to because your second place, aka your job, was in your house. So you weren't even leaving. A lot of us weren't leaving. Some of us were. I left, thank goodness, because I needed that, right? And I was fortunate enough to have a job that provided safety for me and for others, but it also allowed me to leave my house. And I chose that, right? We were given options as well, and I chose to because I was like, I'm good with my little office, right? But if other people are coming, please don't, right? But for a lot of us, our third place, we didn't even have a second place that existed. And now what we're seeing, right, post-pandemic, people are struggling to connect or struggling to feel like they're part of a community because it's not in their routine to go to a place that has community. And then of course, the loneliness continues to deepen within us. Are you guys understanding? Catching my vibe here? Job, I appreciate the nodding of your head. I love it. You're representing everyone who's listening to this pod. And so let's talk about that. Like, what is your third place? How do you develop a third place? How do you get rid of loneliness and such? Well, one, it's good for you to ask yourself this. Is there anything that you're interested in? Is there anything that you're interested in? I am grateful that the one thing I'm interested in helps me to find my third place or helps me to find a sense of community. I've always been interested in spirituality. I've always been interested in faith. As some of you know, I grew up believing in God and I took that belief right into adulthood. I made that choice. That's my thing. And that helps me find my third place. So some of you are like, oh no, you're gonna talk to us about going to church? Well, yeah. For some of you, yeah, that's what you need to do. That's your belief. Get yourself to church. Find a community. Find a church that works for you. Find a place of worship that you just are like, yes, I feel connected. I'm in tuned. You see what I did there? I'm in tuned with something. I'm tuned with a higher power. I'm in tuned with the people around me. I am in tuned with a community. And it also helps me to be in tuned with myself. So that I encourage you to do. And I found an amazing community virtually as well, right? Yes, I'm not physically going to a third place, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, I'm connecting. I'm going to my third place. I'm creating some connections, which has led to actual in person connections, which is amazing. Right. And that truly helps with like having that loneliness subside. Now, what are some other third places that you can go to, right? What are some other things that you can do? One sport that I discovered over the pandemic, I actually did it for my 30th. It was axe throwing. Joe, have you ever been axe throwing?
I absolutely have. Axe throwing is so much fun. So much fun.
Talk about letting out that aggression. Ah!
You ever watch that old show way back in the day, Xena? You ever heard of Xena?
Yes,
Yo.
yes, yes.
What did she have? It was like this little circular axe looking thing. I promise
Yeah.
you, going axe throwing, it was like I was living that out.
And
Oh,
what
yeah.
was her name? Xena the Warrior Princess? Is that was like her
Yes.
title?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
I I my friend is gonna kill me right now for not knowing the actress's name who played Xena. Yes, it's
Yeah.
okay. But
I was too young
shout
for that.
out to that lady. She looks great, by the way. Great. And I see her and I'm like, it's Xena. Xena the Warrior Princess.
Mm-hmm.
She's a
Yep.
baddie. She's a baddie, an absolute baddie. Um, yes. And I was also thinking of like Jason Momoa when I went, because that's something that I know that he's into, especially with promoting Aquaman. I saw him do some X during, I think, on like the Jimmy Fallon show. And yes, I loved it. I was like, you know what? I want to try something new for my 30th, and I want my friends to join me. And some of my friends, it was hilarious because they're like, of course you would pick this. Like, of course you wouldn't want to do dinner, right? Like, of course you want to do this. And some of my friends, I saw them skipping like their turns because they do the X one and once and they were like, I'm good. But then others were just like getting really into it. And I got into it. But the place that I went to was they've been promoting, and I've gone there a couple of times. They've been promoting like joining a team. And it doesn't matter at your skill level. Just like join a team. It's kind of like a bowling league, but now you're in like an axe throwing league. Like just join a league, right? You get to meet people and you get to throw some sharp objects. And that place, they offered drinks there. I don't know how safe that is, but they still managed to keep that going. But hey, it's a vibe for everyone. And guess what? For some people, because I know they some people have joined that league, and the fact that they continue to promote it tells me that they've been somewhat successful with that, right? Tells me that some people have found their third place and that they're loving it and they're having so much fun. But that's an example, right? So that's my question for you. What is your third place? Do you have that? Some of you may have a fourth and a fifth place. Awesome. That is awesome. And then for those of you who don't, right? Again, the question is what is something that you're interested in? Well, here's the thing, Darian. I'm interested in this, but I'm nervous. I'm shy. I'm a bit introverted, right? Or I'm an extrovert, but I'm really an introverted extrovert. However you want to categorize yourself. Or it's just difficult for me to connect with people. This is why apps like Meetup and other like even Bumble BFF, right, exist. Because even in this technological social network space, we're seeing the effects of social disconnection, right? And of course, like I mentioned to you, 60% of adults in the US are lonely. So to combat that loneliness, right, I encourage you to find something, find something that's going to help you connect. And it can also be as small as sending a text to someone. That goes a long way. It's small, it's tiny, it's not as big as joining an axe throwing league, right? It'll help you to feel some connection with someone. And don't worry if the text seems awkward. Don't worry if you send a text and the person is just too busy to like connect with you. First of all, I just want to give you that kudos for doing that. And if there is someone that you trust in your life to say, "Hey, I'm feeling lonely and I don't think I'm doing so well," please tell them. If there's that person, right? Please tell them. If you're in therapy, please tell your therapist that. Talk about it. Explore it. If you're not in therapy, but you're thinking about it, well, I told you I want to wear a shirt that says everyone go to therapy. So guess what I'm about to tell you? Go ahead. Make that appointment. Make that appointment. Do it. Do it. And also, can we be nicer to one another? That's just like another piece that I want to throw in there, right? We're living in such a divided country. Like, it's insane. And because people are feeling lonely, it causes them to seek support in communities that maybe are not very helpful for them, are not beneficial. This is where like extreme groups come through, like happen, and extreme behaviors happen. Y'all know where I'm touching on. Y'all know what I'm touching on. Y'all know what I'm putting down right now. Y'all know what I'm putting down. Some people engage in acts of terror because it started with this feeling I feel isolated. I don't feel like I'm connecting with anyone. And then there's a group that says, "Here, do you feel alone? Why don't you come join us?" And it's not like it was going to help them. It's not like it was going to help them be a better person and help them grow. And some of you, because you're feeling lonely, because you're feeling misunderstood, you're following people that make absolute no sense, but for some reason they touched on some insecurity of yours, and you're like, they're amazing. They know what's up. Really? But their language is violent. Their language is violent. It's insensitive. It's misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation happening. And these people are being lifted up and being put on pedestals. And it's all because they touched on an insecurity and a fear of yours. And I'm not blaming you because I don't shame victims. No, thank you. I don't blame people. I'm just telling you what's up. So with your loneliness, you don't know who to trust. Therapy. I just can't say it enough. Therapy. And for my faith believing friends out there, you don't know who to trust, your higher power. If you don't believe in God, this is your time. This is your opportunity to trust him with your loneliness. You can bring it. You can bring him. And can we just start being nicer to one another? Like, seriously. Like, why is that so hard? Why is it so hard for us to be kind? Because someone doesn't agree with you? Okay. They don't agree with you. If someone sees things from a different perspective from you, no, don't call them names. Don't be mean to them. Can we just accept that we all have different points of view? Right? Can we just accept that? Can we accept people? I think this is that piece right there that's gonna have to be for another pod. But there is a quote that I want to share because I did mention to, and I want to end here, right, with this quote. And we can expand on this, of course, in a different time. The quote is by Paul Tillich. At least I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. Um, it says, loneliness expresses the pain of being alone, and solitude expresses the glory of being alone. I'm going to repeat that for the people in the back. Loneliness expresses the pain of being alone, and solitude expresses the glory of being alone. There is an, a positive to loneliness, and it's called solitude. We need that at times. We need to learn how to block out the noise and how to block out some people, right, in our lives and just spend some time with ourselves to learn how to be in tune with ourselves, to learn how to take moments of being still and reflect, right, and ask ourselves how we're doing and learn to be with ourselves. And it's important for us to connect with other people too, right? So I don't know on which side of the quote you're at. Like I said, we may have to expand on this on another pod because there's just so many different directions we can go with this. Um, but I just wanted to just start the conversation on loneliness. Again, if you're feeling alone, if you are feeling extremely alone and severely alone, and you're thinking about if you're having suicidal ideations, right? Not thinking about being here, ask for help. 988. That's a number that you can call. Yeah, I think it's my responsibility as a therapist to say that, right? And as a human, right? There's help out there and you are not alone. Let me just also say that too. You're not alone. Yeah, I've heard that before, but no one understands me. Well, you're physically not alone. Like there isn't just you on this earth. There's billions of us, right? And I hope and pray that you find your community. I hope and pray that you find your people. They're out there. Just hold on. Just hold on. You'll find them. All right, y'all. We'll stop here because I could sense if I keep talking, this is going to turn into, I think I said this last week, a 3 hour pod. So I'm not trying to keep you here forever. So thank you for indulging in this conversation with me. Um, I see you. I hear you, friends. You take care of yourselves. Remember, be in tune. Peace.